Hi everybody, I'm Paul Hindmarsh and I'm here in sunny California, or it was very, very sunny earlier on, in the beautiful Yamaha house that they've put on. And my job today is to talk about HX Effects, which is the brand new NAMM launch from line 6. So if you're a traditional kind of guitar player and you're used to just having an amp and a guitar and different effects pedals on the ground, then HX Effects is the way for you to get access to all of those helix effects that everybody has been enjoying over the last few years. So there's 117 HX effects in there. There's no amp models because you're going to expect your amp to do that part of the task. So that's full of the HX distortions, that's modulations, delays, pretty much every different effect that you can think of. Now you can have 9 of those effects at once, and it's also going to load impulse responses as well, so you can do some really cool things with that, with the acoustic body resonance or with cabinet impulse responses to running things off to the PA system. So it's got a lot of different things in there. HX effects, one of the reasons why they're so popular is over the years line 6 have become very good at dismantling vintage effects, like classic effects pedals. We get them into Calabasas, and guys there take them to pieces and analyze how each one of those components work. And they make a little daisy chain of digital models that recreate exactly how all those components work in the original pedals. And that's what gives it its real analog sound. Now, some things like old fuzz faces or old fuzz pedals, those components are really difficult to model traditionally. But as processing's got better on line 6 and everybody's getting better and better at it, it means now that we can model exactly those idiosyncrasies, I can't quite say that word, of the way that those unusual characteristics that those things have. So it really does sound analog, and they do sound very, very real these days. Anybody who's familiar with the M series effects, things like the M9 and the M13, we've also added all 77 of those effects into this as well. So you've got nearly 200 different effects on here. 2 different signal paths. Anybody familiar with Helix will know that there was 4 signal paths in here. You have 2 in HX effects, which means if I had 2 amplifiers here, I could send 4 different effects to this amplifier and 4 different effects to this virtual amplifier that's over here. I have 2 different effects loops in there as well. So if you want to replace your current setup, maybe you have an amp and a bunch of pedals on the floor, HX effects can completely replace all of those, or it can work in conjunction with those, or it can work in conjunction with those and control those different things as well. Those effects loops and HX effects are foot switchable. You can assign them to foot switch, so you could have it bringing in a chain of your favorite pedals. If you have a custom collection of pedals that are all nicely hand painted, and it's going to work in conjunction with those as well. So let's have a listen to a few of the things. We're keeping the volume quite quiet today, but hopefully you can turn your computer up and hear some things. So I'm going to start off with just one of the hall reverb. And I'm going to add one of the Minotaur pedal to that. It's a really warm analog sounding and very, very, if you were to buy one of these or one of the original ones of these, it would cost you an awful lot of money, even if you could actually find one as well. So, Minotaur. On top of that, we added one of the new delays. Now, like I said, line 6 are very good at recreating the sounds from classic pedals and redoing the sounds of like a lot of the current pedals on the market. But what they're also very good at, and maybe don't get enough credit for, is actually inventing new pedals as well. It's not just all about modeling other things. So we have some really interesting delays in there, things like the multipass delay, which is, it's a delay, and all of the repeats are like going through a multipass filter. So hopefully you heard that at the start. So there's lots of good sounds you can get from that. Part of Line 6's ongoing thing with the Helix family is to do free firmware updates, which have been coming along for a little while now. So since Helix was introduced, we've gone dramatically up in the terms of the amount of amplifiers and the effects models are in there, and HX Effects really is no sort of different. So currently this one is loaded with the new firmware. This has a whole bunch of brand new HX reverbs in there. So one of them is the plateau reverb, which is great for creating big textures and soundscapes. The other great thing about HX Effects is it doesn't have to be just used for guitar players. It's the effects loops on there and the inputs and the outputs you can reconfigure it to be at line level or instrument level. So if you're a keyboard player or a producer or a DJ, you can actually use this as full stereo outboard effects. And we also have a bunch of studio effects in there as well, things like the LA Studio compressor. So you could apply that to whether it was acoustic guitar or whether it was to vocals or anything. So you can use that as a full studio rig. One of the effects that has always been very popular from Line 6, and it's a great example for demonstrators, and I'm sure if you've ever seen any of the Helix demos, if we go back and talk about the component modeling, the Ubiquitous Vibe is a Univibe model. Now inside that original pedal, there's actually a light bulb that basically pulses, and that's what actually changes the sound. And Line 6 kind of figured out that that's not something that was very easy to create digitally, because a light bulb doesn't necessarily go from off to on in a straight line. It actually changes, and it has a bit of a curve to it as it kind of gets brighter and dims. And that's the kind of analog things that people detect and as you're playing and as you're listening to things. So the Ubiquitous Vibe is a very popular pedal, and it's a great one for demonstrators like myself to show how analog-y digital effects can be. We have things like the Octavia, what I was talking about earlier, the things like the silicone and germanium components and things that act in unusual ways. Let's use the word unusual this time. We have the old octave fuzz. Yeah. Okay, so what we also have is, with all of this power and this flexibility, it has to be very easy to use. Line 6 have become very good over the last few years of making sure that you don't have to scroll through lots of menus and pages in order to get to the effect that you want. We have a really nice color coding system, so anything that's green on the pedal board will be by default be one of the delays. So I can say I've got a delay pedal in front there. Anything that's orange is going to be a reverb. Dynamic effects are going to be yellow. I'm going to have modulation effects, which are going to be blue, and filters that are going to be purple. So on a dark stage, I can very quickly see what I've got at my feet. On HX Effects, we also have scribble strips. So the scribble strips, you can customize them to be anything that you want them to be. So if you want to write bad messages to the rest of the band, you can have them say anything that you want them to do, but they're going to default to the type of effect that you have assigned to it. HX Effects will also send out MIDI commands or receive MIDI information as well, so you could label that up as to exactly what it was going to do. HX Effects will also send out amp switching information. So if you have a particular amp that you like and it's a channel changing amp, maybe with reverb, HX Effects, by connecting one of the external foot switches or external expression jacks on there, that'll channel change and switch in the reverb depending on the preset that you have on there, or you could assign it to one of the foot switches. So again, it goes back to this centerpiece idea of it being able to control amplifiers, control different effects as well. What else have we got on there? So let's just say if you were to have a normal pedal board, you want to be able to get to the pots and the knobs on there and change the parameters very quickly. HX Effects is no different. It has capacitance touch foot switches, which we brought out with the rest of the Helix family, and that means that if I want to change the settings on this octave fuzz, it just means as long as I haven't got gloves on, as long as I just touch that foot switch, it'll instantly bring up the parameters there, and I have 3 knobs at the top which I can actually turn, and that's going to change whatever's in that screen. Likewise, if I want to change the effect on the vibe there, if I just press that, I can instantly see that I have 3 different parameters there to change. So it's as quick, if not quicker, than actually dealing with a normal traditional sort of pedal board. What I can also do with HX Effects and the Helix family is I can change settings without actually having to stop playing guitar. So we have a thing on there called pedal edit mode, and that's going to involve me holding down the mode foot switch. It's now going to ask me which of the effects that I want to change. So let's say I'm in the middle of a rip-roaring guitar solo, and I've decided that I just need a little bit more delay for the end of the solo, because that's the way my brain works. So it's not really, I'd be definitely thinking about how to play the rest of the solo. So it's now flashing, saying Univibe, octave fuzz, simple delay, and then it's the glitz reverb. And we said we want to change the delay on there. So click on simple delay. It's now asking me which of those parameters I want to change. We wanted to change the mix. So I'm going to click on mix, and I have 2 value keys at the bottom there where I can actually go in and change that mix, put it right up just for that very, very last note, and be able to do that. So that's something that you would not be able to do on a normal custom pedal board that you might have. Other things that we can do, let me think. We have snapshots on there. So snapshots is a way of, again, if you imagine having yourself a custom pedal board, you may have an overdrive that you really like. Maybe it has a little bit of chorus on that preset that you like. This is a way of, say that you had that setting for the verse of your song, and then you need to go into the chorus of that song, and you want a little bit more reverb, maybe a little bit more treble on your overdrive. Snapshots is a way of having 4 different variations of a preset in one preset. So snapshot number 1 would be your normal sound. Snapshot number 2, you just save that sound with a little bit more reverb, a little bit more EQ, whichever way you want to do that, and it'll instantly recall that. The other advantage of being able to do that is it means that there is no switching off all of the effects and loading them back into another preset. So anybody who's previously been frustrated by little gaps of switching when on all processes where you switch from preset to preset, there can be a little bit of latency as everything loads back up. Snapshots avoids all that, and you can think of it as just being scenes or momentary sort of snapshots of your setup, and you can have up to 4 of those at one time. We also have a 6-foot switch looper on there. Now everything inside HX Effects can be mono or stereo. The looper is no exception to that. So you can have stereo loops on there. Something that I really like doing is having a stereo loop and being able to place things in the stereo field. So I haven't got this one set up to do this, but I can actually record a guitar part and have it coming out of this, again, this virtual amplifier over here. I can then start adding overdubs and maybe have those coming out of this amplifier there. So it's great to be able to loop and have these stereo things going on. And also have the reverse functions on there and half speed functions on that loop pedal as well. If we were to have a look at the back of the unit, you'd see that there's two effects loops, both mono, but you can run those and configure those in stereo. The external expression pedal jacks, there's 2 of those, so that's what I was saying earlier, where you can channel change amplifiers, you can switch in reverbs and things on amplifiers as well. And then you've got stereo in, stereo out, which is true stereo, and they can work on their own paths as well. So you can plug whatever goes in the left jack's going to come out the left output jack. that could have completely different effects from what's going on the right side of things. And then at the end there we have, we've got the MIDI, so for sending MIDI commands, receiving MIDI information, and then we've got USB for the firmware updates, which is where we send all those new goodies, new toys for you to play with. And that also allows us to have the HX Edit software running as well. So that's like the librarian where we can save sounds, we can send sounds around the world, we can share share our presets as well, or just really just back them up. Which is obviously, if you've got a HX Effects full of sounds, you definitely don't want to lose those. You don't want to lose those sounds at any point. And if you can drop them into another machine as well. Okay, so I think that kind of covers everything. So, in summary, it's 117 HX effects from Helix. For it to sit with the normal pedals that you have on your pedal board, it's to replace the pedals that you have on there as well, or it can sit in the studio and run in stereo, like a stereo outboard effects unit. It's going to be available very, very soon. It's the NAMM launch, and it's going to be the #1 product of NAMM, I'm sure. So, thank you very much for your time. Yeah, catch you later on.